Hello everyone, today we're going to be continuing the review of the Phenomenology of Internal Time Consciousness by Edmund Husserl. We're starting part 2, the analysis of time consciousness. The first part covered the opinion of Franz Brentano. This section is going to be the beginning of the opinion of Husserl. The second part is going to be broken up into 3 parts for us because it's very difficult to get through the text all at once, and it's about 60 pages, so I'm going to be doing 3 separate parts on this second section of the Phenomenology of Internal Time Consciousness. But with that, let's get in. First, Highletic data and identity. When you experience an object, you experience it as an identity. You can observe this. Take any object around you, look at it, spin around your phone. If you have a book or a pen, pick it up, move it around. You'll notice that at each instant it has like a million different little colors on it, or it's got a bunch of different shapes. But you experience it as one thing, even though you experience it in multiple positions, from multiple perspectives, in multiple lights. So we have these 2 things. One is the identity that you experience, and the second one is these like individual pieces of data, the colors, the values the colors have, how saturated they are, what shape the object appears to have. All of these things are things that appear to you as like individual discrete pieces of data, and these are called Highletic data for Husserl. Again, the Highletic data are just all of the little individual pieces of information, the color of the phone, the shape it appears to be in at one instant. And then there's the identity, which is the fact that you experience the phone as a single thing despite this infinity of data. Now we add time. Now you experience identities over time. There are multiple times at which you experience your phone. You move it around. There's time 1, there's time 2. Like I talked about in the section from Brentano, we still have, in some sense, these past moments of the experience of the object. Otherwise, we couldn't experience them as the same object. The first instant, the first time that you experience your phone, and the second moment, the second instant, you experience them as the same phone. However, this requires some kind of comparison, right? You can't compare 2 different things and say they are the same thing. You can't compare the phone at time 1 and time 2 and say this is the same phone without first having 2 things to compare, the first moment and the second moment. So we have this experience of the identity over time. Now, there's the identity of the object in the past, which is the first moment, and the identity of the object in the present, which is the second moment. The second moment, you're looking at the phone, and you compare it to the first moment, and you say, there is an identity here. These are the same object. Now, I want to clarify something. This language of comparison is a bit misleading. You're not making an inference. You're not trying to deduce that the object at time 1 and time 2 are the same object. What you're doing is, this is just a judgment you make. There's no conscious, these 2 objects could be one and the same perhaps, or something darky like that. The point of talking about the comparison was to emphasize the importance of having the object in your awareness, both in the present and in this like past mode, to be able to establish the identity over time. But what's happening is you just experience the 2 moments as experiences of the same object. The experience of the identity there, the identity in your phone, is continuous. It's not something which is broken into parts. Yeah. Okay, so we have these present experiences of identity, past experiences of identity, and the Highletic data. Now we get to empty intentions. So think of your idea of the number 2. You can picture 2 things. When I say 2, you just have 2, The number 2 is something you're capable of just conceptualizing as is. The number 57 is not the same. You can't picture exactly 57 roses in your mind. You can't picture 72 roses exactly in your mind. Maybe you can picture 4, maybe 5, maybe a bit more, but no one goes above about 6 or 7 in this like kind of direct picturing or direct intending. Now, we still know what the number 57 means in a certain sense, and we can produce 57 objects, and we can count to 57, but the intention of 57 is, in a certain sense, empty. It doesn't have the embodied character that the numbers 1 through about 5 or 6 have for us. Now, identities over time are similar. There is the now, which you have in perfect clarity with all of its content. It's just now. You have the sensation of the object. You have the identity of the object in perfect clarity. Then you have the object just passed. This is an instant ago. The identity is in slight obscurity, but still more or less in clarity. And then you have the far past. Maybe, 20, well, maybe not 20 minutes, maybe 30 seconds ago, you started looking at a phone and you retain this like identity of the phone. You just don't stop looking at it, right? So you're retaining the identity of the phone, but the original act of apprehension, the original apprehension of the identity of the phone, when you first looked at it 20 seconds ago, you aren't really retaining that now. It's like an empty intention of identity. Like, you know that there's been a continuity between that first moment of looking at the phone and 20 seconds later where you're currently looking at the phone. So like you know that it happened and you have that as a kind of intention. However, it's not something which is incredibly clear. It doesn't have the content that the present experience has, and it doesn't have the clarity that the just past experience has. It's long enough ago that it has more or less been replaced by later impressions, later sensations of the object. Which gives us this little diagram of time that Husserl has made for us. You see the O on the screen. The O and the E on the top represent time. So time goes from left to right. And these are a bunch of different moments of time. Now, O to P, where that little X is on the top, is the experience of an object. So you have the experience of, say, a pen, and that starts at O and it goes to P. Now, the line that goes down from the P is your experience of the object at that time. The line that goes down is you retaining the identity of the pen as you go along, and it fades further and further into obscurity as you keep going. So say you stop experiencing the identity of the pen after the P point. Now, you still have the identity, it's still in your retention, but you're not currently experiencing new moments of the identity. So it falls into this little P prime and the E prime. Your retention of the pen falls further and further away from the current moment, further back into retentional consciousness, back into your primal like memory. And then the second diagram here shows more or less the same thing, but it's emphasizing that there are future moments that you don't have access to. So there's all these moments that you've retained from the O to the E with that little arrow, and then there is kind of an expectation of future moments and a projection of how your retention will proceed as you go along in time. I hope that made sense. Okay, we've got some nesting. So there are the primal impressions. These are just your immediate experiences. These are the source of the Highletic data and they accompany the judgments of identity, the colors, the shape of the phone when you experience it, along with the identity of the phone. These are continually falling into retentional consciousness, into this just past kind of memory. This will be called retention in the future, by the way. That's just its name. Past moments of the identity judgments that we've made, that we've talked about, are retention. This is very famous. It's as famous as the phenomenology of time gets, but this position on retention is very important. Then each retention of a now includes the experience of retentions that were present during other nows. This is a little obscure, so let's dig into it a little bit. So take your experience of the phone at moment 2. At the first moment, you had just the experience of the phone. At the second moment, you had the experience of the phone and a retention of the phone. Now, the retention modifies your second experience of the phone. So, when you have a third moment of experiencing the phone, this third moment is going to be a retention. It's going to include a retention both of that second moment and of the retention you were experiencing in the second moment. So there's kind of a nesting effect. You have moment 1, which is the now, and then you have moment 2, which is the now plus the retention, and then you have moment 3, which is now plus a retention, and that retention includes in itself a now and a retention. There's kind of a nesting. It gets more complex as you experience the object for longer. So every retention is a retention both of a now and what was being retended or retained at the moment that the now took place in. Then we have this final little section. Husserl emphasizes that the actual sensation that caused or that accompanied your impression of identity isn't really present during the retentions. The retention is the retention of the identity of the object, not of every single impression that was happening. Maybe you can call those impressions to your memory, but they aren't explicitly present in retention, considered as retentional. And then retention requires a now. By its nature, the idea of retention is always related to a now that it retains. If there was no present, there could be no retention. There's no such thing as a retention which isn't a retention of a present moment or a moment that was present at some point in the past. We will continue with more of this soon. I hope it's been comprehensible. I hope you've been enjoying it. I certainly have been enjoying reading this. It's so interesting. Okay, have a good day, everyone.